So my name is Alex Oliver, and this is my article review for the qualitative and quantitative final. So to start with, the article I used was titled "The Use of Alcohol Among NCAA Division I Female College Basketball, Softball, and Volleyball Athletes." Just a brief rundown. The objective of this study was to identify and describe alcohol use among NCAA Division I female college athletes and determine to what extent the players have been exposed to alcohol and drug education programs at their respective institutions. An overview of the article. Um, the study collected data through self-reporting questionnaires that were sent to the school's athletic trainers and then distributed through the athletic trainers. They were sent to 10 women's basketball teams, 10 softball teams, and 11 volleyball teams, all NCAA Division I teams. That was a total of 371 participants who returned the questionnaires, and the questionnaire was comprised of 3 sections that included demographics, alcohol use, and alcohol education. Because of the way this data was distributed and taken, it would qualify as a narrative qualitative study. And then after the questionnaires were returned, 40 of the athletes, so 40 of the 371, which is 11% of the participants, were also involved in face-to-face interviews. The results showed that the athletes had obtained education and drugs and alcohol for the majority, and the players were more heavily involved in consumption out of season due to the negative effects of alcohol and drugs on sport performance, weight gain, and coaches' expectations of their respective teams. The athletes who lived off campus also showed more frequent drinking, while the athletes that lived on campus reported drinking more at a time. So they didn't drink as often, but when they did drink, they had a higher consumption rate. There were a few ethical concerns that I saw with this study. It doesn't talk about informed consent, so that is a huge thing when doing these kind of questionnaires, especially when we know that the NCAA has heavy rules on drugs and alcohol. So for these kids to be able to report this for a study, that could have had some impact. Also, I thought it was a little concerning that the athletic trainers were the ones distributing the questionnaires. I'm sure it was easy to get in contact with them and kind of allow them to do the heavy lifting of getting them out and getting them back in and sending them to the researchers. But knowing that the athletic trainers have to report certain things that they see with these athletes, I think that could have been an ethical concern in itself. And I also think that that could have hindered some of the answers provided for the study. Also, the face-to-face interviews were only comprised of 11% of the athletes. Could have imposed a little bit of misconduct on the ethical side. This study was done out of the University of South Carolina, which is a NCAA D1 institution. And the study never specified, but if these face-to-face interviews were done at South Carolina by the athletic trainers or the researchers at South Carolina who know them personally, I think just the interviews themselves could raise a little bit of concern because of the level of intimacy that these interviews do take on and how honest you have to be. That to me was a little bit of a red flag on the ethical part. So next, with the validity and reliability, just first what they are. Validity more shows the soundness of the research methodology and results, and it also shows the appropriateness of the tools used, data collected, and process used throughout the research, to whereas reliability refers to the replicability of the research, including the process and results of the process. So could somebody else pick it back up and do it by what you did and what you recorded? So specifically for the study that I looked at, in regards to validity and reliability, The triangulation, they did try to make it more reliable by doing 2 different forms of questioning. Like I said, it was a very small percent that got the face-to-face interview. So yes, that did add to it a little bit, but I would almost venture to say they needed to do more than 11% in a face-to-face interview to even boost the reliability a little bit more. Cross-checking, they did reference that they looked into the current data to help narrow their study of what they wanted to look at. So alcohol use and education. This is an older study, so I'm sure there wasn't as much research then in 98 as there is now. So definitely further research needs to be done. The methods were, decent, but they weren't as sound as they should be or reliable as they should be. There definitely needs to be more research on this topic to prove a more in-depth study and get better results, I think. But that is basically a rundown of the study. It is somewhat reliable, it is valid. And thank you for watching. And these are just my references for my project.